Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkmaster3, and I'm finally back with a new video. And for today's video, it's going to be a horror review, or horror movie review, if you will. And it's going to be tough to review this film because of its like content and whatnot. But I think I also have to censor the cover art a little bit. But it is Takashi Miike's Visitor Q. For those of you who have seen this film, probably know why I'm doing this and like why I'm saying that this is a really difficult film to make a review of. But it's essentially about this family, the a mother who is pretty much like really has a tough time with her son because her son constantly abuses her, and her father does her fiance doesn't seem to care, and he's off to doing other weird stuff with the daughter in the family, which is kind of like the intro of the film as well. So you can say they have a pretty good time in the beginning of the film, if you get what I mean. And the but yeah, once and also like the son in this family is just absolutely really aggressive towards the mother, which is just really frustrating and hard to watch. And so all of these people also like the mother in the film, she's also like kind of like obsessed, like she kind of like tries to take out all of the suffering by using like drugs and stuff. um, so that's really a tragic story. But then a person comes along which they kind of call like the visitor Q, or like the stranger, I think you can just call him. And he's a very weird character because he kind of just shows up and starts living in their house, and no one really asks why he's there and what this purpose is. But he feels more like a weird fifth part of the family in a weird way, because he's sort of like this guy that you kind of like feel like you are probably the same character like him, because he's sort of like observing what's really going on, and like all of these absurd things happening within the family and everything surrounding that. And so it's sort of like this, almost like a voyeurism type of guy, if you get what I mean, which is really strange. But I don't really know what else to say about the film, because it's basically about this family dealing with lots and lots of really horrific stuff going on. Which, I mean, in the first like half of the film is actually really sad and kind of depressing. But then towards like somewhere in the midsection of the film, it just goes absolutely ridiculous and really crazy, to the point that even though you see really disturbing and messed up material, you just can't help yourself but laughing at this. And I kind of felt like a complete lunatic when I laughed at this. But then again, I've seen so many other disturbing films at this point, so I just felt like, well, maybe I've just turned into some sort of psychopath. But I was kind of relieved as well that it apparently on IMDb it's categorized as dark comedy, which totally makes sense, and that made me feel like, okay, I'm still a human. I'm not turning absolutely insane. So those sequences, like towards the end of the film, are really meant to be a sort of like over the top funny like things, even though it's a really horrific acts that you can see in front of you in this film, that is still meant to be like a weird comedy bit. And I'm so fascinated by this film that Takashi Miike somehow made it possible to laugh at material like this, which you usually would just say, oh, this is absolutely horrific and really disturbing. It's just the way it's filmed and the acting and like the whole weird style to the film, because it has a very lower budget than some of his other films. And I think that was definitely made as a I think it was made on a low budget on purpose, because it definitely feels more like a almost like a found, not a found footage type of deal, but it felt like a very cheap type of video that someone just made on a random basis, and they just put that in the film. But I mean, that is meant to be like that. So throughout many parts of the film, this visitor Q guy is like sort of like documenting stuff, and he's like filming stuff going on. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say about the film itself without being flagged, probably, because there's some really dark material in here which I don't think I can discuss at all. But if you know your Takashi Miike type of films in general, you'd really know he wants to go over some of those boundaries, and he doesn't really he doesn't really give a crap if you're offended by that or not. I mean, he's just doing his own business, and I just think he's such an amazing director that he actually dared to make a film like this, and at the same time make it somewhat funny. And he's probably one of the only people that can make something really dark as this funny. Yeah. And so if you do like other Takashi Miike films in general, go check this one out. but be warned, there's some really, like I said, it depends on what type of humor you have as well. I mean, if you do have really dark humor, this definitely is the film for you. Because I just couldn't help myself laughing towards the end of the film because of how ridiculous it is and how like funny the acting was. So yeah, camera work is fine for what it is, but it's meant to look cheap, so I kind of get that. Sound is good, sound mix is good, acting is really really amazing. I really like the acting. I think the only actor I actually recognize in this one is the father, played by, let's see what his name is. I have to double check on this one. Sorry guys. But he's been in lots of stuff in general. Let's just say Kenichi Endo, I believe his name is. Probably butchered his name, but he's been in lots of stuff in general, so he's probably the only person that I recognize in this film. But so, like I said, great acting. There isn't a whole lot of soundtrack to this film, so most of the film is pretty much like a silent type effort. So it doesn't really have any score or any soundtrack to it really. Which totally fits the film, because if it would have been drenched in lots and lots of music, it wouldn't have the same impact, in my personal opinion. But so I totally understand why they did that. What else can I talk about? There isn't too much like in terms of like blood or gore effects, but towards the end, I mean, they're more like a slapstick type of deal at that point. It's not like really like something that is very realistic or something like that, but so it's meant to look a little bit cheap just because of how the whole tone of the film really is, I feel like. So but anyway, Visitor Q, this came out in the early 2000s. I think this came out maybe right before Itchy the Killer. So I would actually say this is more messed up than Itchy the Killer, but then maybe that's just me. But if you do like any of the other Takashi Miike films in general, go check this one out. And if you do have really dark humor, you'll probably love this film. So I give Visitor Q a 7 out of 10. So there you go, Visitor Q. Damn. Getting tired in my hand now just because I had to censor that. But yeah, anyway, hope you enjoy this particular review. I'm not really sure what the next video is going to be about. Maybe not yet another like one of those lists, maybe top lists or anything like that, ranking videos. I really like those as well. And now when I come think of it, I still have some other films that I have to show you which I've completely forgotten about, like I usually do. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this particular video, and see you next time. Bye bye.